Well, good morning. Welcome to another edition of Take 5. It is Monday, January 23rd, 2012. We are in Luke chapter 12, verse 8. And I tell you, everyone who acknowledges me before men, the Son of Man also will acknowledge before the angels of God. But the one who denies me before men will be denied before the angels of God. And everyone who speaks a word against the Son of Man will be forgiven, but the one who blasphemes against the Holy Spirit will not be forgiven. And when they bring you before the synagogues and the rulers and the authorities, do not be anxious about how you should defend yourself or what you should say, for the Holy Spirit will teach you in that very hour what you ought to say. Well, you remember yesterday we were talking about don't be afraid. Jesus told his disciples not to be afraid. Well, some of the things that they could be afraid of would be the fact that people are going to oppose them and people are going to arrest them and put them in prison for being Jesus' disciples. And he says don't worry about it. Don't worry about what you're going to say when these kind of things happen. The Holy Spirit will give you words to say. The Holy Spirit will teach you. It says don't even worry about how you're going to defend yourself. God's allowing these things so you can be able to deal with them. That's what he's telling his disciples. And the same would be true for us as well. Now he says at the beginning of this passage something very interesting. He says, if you are ashamed of him, he'll be ashamed of you before the holy angels. He says, but if you're not ashamed of him, he won't be ashamed of you. So let me ask you, are you ashamed of Jesus? And you might be thinking, oh, of course I'm not ashamed of Jesus. Well, really? Well, let me ask you this then. When you're in certain situations and you're in a crowd and you know Jesus would want you to step up and stand up and say something, are you ashamed of Jesus? When the crowd's telling certain kinds of jokes or they're going a particular direction, listen, this is convicting to me. I don't believe I believe I'm not standing up for Jesus enough. Let me just put it that way. I want Jesus to be proud of me, not ashamed of me. And he wants to be proud of you. He wants you to be light in the midst of darkness. So you've got to stand up for it. Now, the blasphemy of the Holy Spirit, which he talks about here, we dealt with in Matthew and Mark. So go back and look at what I said during those times. I believe is the best explanation for that. But anyway, the point is, he tells his disciples back then to expect persecution. Well, if you're ashamed of Jesus and you're not standing up for him, well, you're probably not going to be getting any. So look at what's going on right now. Are you getting any kind of persecution from anybody? Well, if you are, then you probably are. It's because you're standing up for Jesus against folks who do not want to stand up for Jesus. But if you're not getting any, you need to at least examine the fact that maybe you've been kind of ashamed of Jesus and you're not really talking about him like you should, and you're not applying his word to the situations you and the group of people you're hanging around with are in. Anyway, main point, don't be ashamed of Jesus. Stand up for him. Come back tomorrow for the next edition of Take 5.